Welcome to the Sherry Andrea Psychic Empath Show with your host, Sherry Andrea. Sherry Andrea brings her listeners interesting discussions and topics related to empathy, psychic and spiritual development, as well as energy work. She is herself a psychic empath, healer, coach, author, and founder of SherryAndrea.com. Welcome, and here is your host, Sherry Andrea.
Hi, and thank you for listening. This is Sherry Andrea. This is another summer recording. And if you're listening, I am so happy and so thankful that you took the time to listen. I am hopefully going to make this so that it's not too long. However, this is actually a recording where I wanted to discuss two topics. And the first topic actually has to do with, I guess I would call it knowledge. It would have to do with gaining knowledge, gaining understanding, and eventually gaining wisdom. Okay, then in the second topic, I'll go ahead and tell you. The second topic is the right to walk the path God's way. So the first topic is very important, and that's why I'm putting it first. Because, since I do coaching and then I get a lot of emails asking me for help, of course, it's not unusual that I see a lot of, the same questions. I mean, of course, we all, along the way, had very similar questions. And some of our lessons that we've had have been similar. Usually the people that are guided to me are people who are going through similar experiences that I have gone through in the past. And that's no coincidence, of course. Back when I decided to, a couple years ago, take my spirituality very seriously, and by very seriously what I mean when I made that decision that where I was being guided was towards becoming enlightened. And at that point, I made the commitment that, I would go where I was led, and that if God would send people my way, I would help them. And that, in fact, does happen, and I can tell. And at first I couldn't, but it's become more and more obvious because I always get people who have the experiences they're going through. What they're going through are experiences that I had in the past. And so I generally do not get people coming to me that are going through experiences that I have no experience with. And I thought you'd find that interesting to know and to realize, but I don't. For the last 2 years, the people who have been guided to me have been people who have who are going through similar experiences that I had in the past, or their awakening is very similar. Also, majority of the people that are guided my way, they're either highly sensitive or they're empaths. Many of them are clairsentient, which I'm not surprised at all that clairsentients are guided my way because of my experience that I have with clairsentience. I've probably taken the development of it and learning to use it probably further than most do. And, and that's, I'm not trying to say anything. I'm not trying to say, I'm better, I figured it out. No, it's not that. It's that many people, their strongest ability a lot of times is something other than clairsentience. Clairsentience isn't their most prominent ability, whereas it's mine. So the way I look at it is like I had no choice but to figure it out. It was the most prominent ability, and it was very much there and in my face. It was on constantly all day, and whenever you're faced with something like that, of course you have no choice but to try to figure it out, try to get a handle on it. So that's my most prominent and strongest ability that I deal with all day, every day, whereas somebody else, it may be clairsentient, they may have a gift of sight, and that's what they deal with most often. And so that's the ability that they find is manifesting the most. And so I generally don't get a lot of people guided my way who have their strongest ability as clairvoyance, unless there's something else they have going on, which is the reason why they were guided my way. Okay, I hope I didn't confuse you with all that. It sounded like a tongue twister. But anyway, I wanted to speak of knowledge and gaining knowledge, and I often say to people when they come to me and they have so many questions and they're just starting out, and I often will tell them to read, and I know I must sound like a broken record by now, because just like a lot of people get used to hearing meditate, 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 well, here I go. I'm going read, read, read. And so often people don't realize that the reason why I'm saying that isn't just, I'm not saying that because I don't want to give you the answer. I'm not saying that because I don't want to tell you myself things. I'm saying that because there's a bigger picture that I know, and I am trying to tell you something and to do something that's going to make a huge difference. And I kind of felt like maybe I need to explain why, because maybe I haven't explained this well enough. I've had people coming to me that's like, oh, I've read, pretty much everything under the sun. And, they'll list it and they'll be like, I've read about this, I've read about that, I've read about the other thing. But still they're in this state of, I don't get it. Why this? Why that? Why the other thing? But when I say to them, well, you need to read, they'll say, but I've read everything. And then they get frustrated, and which I totally understand. But you know why you're getting frustrated? It's because it doesn't end with the reading. There's a reason why you're told to meditate. It's not just because in meditation your vibrations are raised. But when you meditate, those things that you read, and the things that people have shared with you, it is in meditation where you reach a point and a level where at some point understanding is going to be given to you. I can tell you things. I can tell you to read. But there's one thing I cannot do. I cannot give you understanding. That is something a person can only give themselves. Now, if you didn't understand that, I will give you a specific example. I will tell you the first time I didn't know this always, and a lot of the things that I share with you, I didn't know always. There was a time I knew nothing, literally nothing. There was a time I had it wrong. There was a time when the truths I have today, I didn't have any of them. I believed and understood totally different things. And that's normal. That is the path. So I know sometimes people want to say, oh, well, you're wrong with this, or they want to tell a person, oh, but, you're not seeing this and you're heading in the wrong direction. Guess what? They're supposed to. That's part of their path, is to learn, grow, drop old beliefs, pick up new ones. Truth doesn't come overnight, and it doesn't come easily. It also doesn't come because somebody else told it to you. Somebody could tell you something until you're blue in the face. That doesn't give you understanding. That you have to come to on your own. For example, if I tell you something, if you ask me a question and I answer it and I tell you something, you're not done. Because until you are able to gain an understanding from within about what I said, you have nothing. Yeah, you maybe read it and you tried to understand it. Maybe you understood the words. Maybe you understood it in a basic level. But true, divine understanding doesn't come because you read it or you were told it. It comes because you first acquired the knowledge and then you did something which allowed you to bring in understanding to yourself. Now I'll go a step further and I'll explain to you how I did that. I knew all along from the very beginning that raising the vibrations was very important. Now, of course, I didn't understand in the beginning how important and how crucial it was. But I knew that it was very important. But then I got to a certain point, like I said, where I've said before, where I took my spirituality more seriously, where I just made a commitment that I was either going to do this or I wasn't going to do this. And since I felt that I was following my purpose, I really felt I was being guided. I didn't know why. I didn't know what the reason was, why I was being guided in the way I was. And I didn't really, I trusted and didn't question it. But I knew how important it was to raise the vibration, so at one point, I actually stopped doing everything that I had learned in the past. In the beginning, I didn't know anything, and so I went to message boards and things, and, people taught me about chakras, they taught me about crystals, they taught me about angels, they said do this, they said do that, they said do the other thing. And then it got to a point where it got really, really confusing. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. And it was at a time when I didn't really have trust in anything. I hadn't developed that yet. And so I felt really guided to just basically drop everything and leave everything and just focus on one thing. And basically, I took it to a very basic level because I had made it up in my mind that all else fails, I knew I could trust God. If all else fails, I knew He wouldn't steer me wrong. So I took it back down to a very basic level, and that is when I started getting into literally, praying, saying decrees all day long. And I literally do mean all day. Now, I don't mean that, I got down on my hands and knees and I stayed in that position all day long. What I mean is, I would have times when I would just, sit quietly and pray. But then, of course, we have to do things throughout the day. But I was always praying. I would literally was praying almost every waking moment. So I was either at home, if I was at home by myself, I may have been sitting and praying out loud, which is very important. It's very important to pray, say decrees, mantras out loud. But even when I wasn't home and I was out doing errands, doing whatever, I was still praying quietly to myself inside my head. I didn't stop, and when I did, and I realized it, I started back up again. So I would literally pray all day long. And this is what I put my focus on. And it greatly, of course, raised my vibrations. I mean, all kinds of weird experiences just started happening. And this is probably the first time. There's only a couple of people in the world who have heard me say this and who know this. So this will be the first time that I'm actually saying this, like, to everybody. But from all that prayer and from the experience of doing all of that, there were things that happened that I didn't understand. So even still today, I know what it feels like to have things going on and happening where you're like, why is this happening? What is this? What's going on with me now? If you've read my blog, you know I've had experiences where I was trying to be told something, and I had sunblock coming out of my pores. Some of you know from reading my blog that I've had these experiences. I have what most would call, I started experiencing a non-physical stigmata. Now, this is the first time that I'm actually openly telling anyone this, because it's not something that you find easy to talk about. Because when your experiences get that deep, I mean, you're kind of in a state where you kind of don't even know what's happening, and so you're kind of like, well, I'm not even sure I want anyone to ask me about this, because somebody says, well, I got the same thing going on. Well, I'm not even sure if I can help them, because maybe I don't understand some of the experiences that I'm going through. I can only share that I have them. And so, like I said, I realized how important raising your vibrations was. And then, so I was doing that, and I was trying to meditate on a regular basis. And I had never been too good at sticking to it. I'd do it for 3 days in a row, and then I would just get sidetracked, and I would stop doing it, and I wouldn't do it for a while. But finally I said, you know what? I only do 10 minutes anyway, and 10 minutes isn't very much. Let me at least make the effort to do maybe every other day at least. Let me at least try. Even if I only do a couple of minutes of meditation, at least I have to try. And so I started meditating more often, once every couple of days, once every 3 days. So it wasn't every day, but I started meditating on a regular basis, 10 to 15 minutes, a day. And then I began to try to meditate for longer periods of time. By longer, I mean I'm talking 20, 30 minutes. Every now and then I could do 40 minutes. But something began to happen, I noticed. I began to notice that after the meditation, when I would usually choose to meditate, and then like if I was going to write a post on my blog, I would meditate first, and then I would write, because I would kind of feel like, I don't know, like my head was clearer, or I was in a better place. Well, one day I realized that all of a sudden, after meditation, I'm sitting there and just relaxing, I just had concepts and ideas just flooding in. Like I didn't know where they were coming. They were just, flooding in. There were concepts and ideas of things that came out a year later that someone, you know what I mean, and you may have heard of this, quantum reading. Well, that concept, the whole concept of quantum reading, basically reading by sensing a book instead of physically reading the words, that came to me a year before I ever saw anyone talk about how they had developed this method. And of course that was validation for me that in fact what I had gotten was I had connected somehow through raising my vibrations, through practicing meditation. I finally hit that point where the understanding was starting to flood in. After that, I began noticing that often after any time that I would meditate, if I had something that I'd been trying to figure out, something I wasn't understanding, after the meditation, suddenly things would just be made crystal clear suddenly. Suddenly I would have understanding that I didn't previously have. I mean, literally just like that. Now, I say all this and I tell you about the experience so that maybe you will understand that when you come to me and you say, but I've read all of this, I've read this, I've read this, I've read this, still don't get it. There's a reason why you don't get it. It's because you need the understanding to go with it, and that's not something that somebody else can give you. It's only something that you can attain yourself. And it's about going within. It's about going inside. You can't find it outside yourself. So don't bother, and this is a whole nother thing that I will get into at a later time, maybe not now, but at a later time. Don't bother calling on someone outside yourself, and by that I don't mean don't call on God. God's not outside yourself. God's actually inside yourself, even though you don't realize it. I don't mean don't call on your higher self. What I mean is don't call on someone outside of yourself to try to gain understanding. So what I mean is don't call on this angel, that angel, this ascended master, that ascended master, to give you understanding. And I know this is going to kind of sound confusing because for some things, if you studied some things, you'll know that this is a little bit contradictory to what some of you may know. So you have to bear with me. I am trying to explain it the best I can, and some things are going to sound a little contradictory, but hopefully you'll get the point of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the level of understanding that goes along with the knowledge that you have impressed upon your memory body by gaining it in whatever way you have, by reading, by somebody telling you, by listening to someone speak the words. When you did that, what you were doing was you were taking the knowledge in and you were impressing it upon your memory body where it just sits. It's there. You remember reading it or you remember being told it, but right now it's just sitting. Now you need to do something to bring in the understanding, and I liken it to something that you bring in that kind of matches up with what you've already learned. It matches that when you bring in that understanding is likened to taking that knowledge and saying, okay, I see you brought this knowledge in here, I'm going to take it, I'm going to now make it make sense to you. But you can only get that by going within. So if all you've ever done is, read, and have people tell you things, and you don't have an understanding of it outside of that, you need to get that. Because you will never have true understanding that then leads to wisdom if you don't do that. Many people know a lot of things. It's true. Many people are very smart and know a lot of things. But sometimes what they're still lacking is just doing what they need to do by going within, by meditating to gain the understanding. Many people meditate and they don't really feel that they get any benefit from it. They don't know what's supposed to be happening. Some people, I've heard living masters say that you're not supposed to just sit and meditate. You're supposed to meditate in a certain specific way, in a way that may be true. I mean, the reason why it works for me is because of my intent. I had a very strong intent the whole time to want to spiritually advance. Why did I spiritually advance the way I did? You know, some see it as being that I spiritually advanced quickly, but there's a reason for that. It didn't happen by accident. Cause and effect, the law of attraction, basically is what caused it to happen. I had such a great desire, such a strong intent to want to spiritually advance. I mean, literally to the point where it was the most important thing in my life. It was the very thing that I almost felt like I was living for. And if you know anything about the law of attraction, well, that basically means with all the praying and everything I was doing and my vibrations being so high and all that positive, high vibration energy I was sending out there, of course, when the universe turned around to send it back to me, what did it send me? It sent me what it saw my intent what it saw I was so focused on. I always say with the law of attraction, you'll attract to yourself that which you put your focus on. Well, what was I putting the majority of my focus on? My spiritual, and my spiritual advancement. So of course that's what I had coming back to me. You know, so many times you can understand why you have certain things coming to you, whereas there's other things that you wish were coming to you and they're kind of not. It's because you got to look at, what your focus is really on. What do you think most about throughout the day? Are you spending the majority of your time thinking about your dream job? Well, then that's probably what you're going to be attracting as opportunities that are going to eventually lead you to a dream job. Do you spend, are you like a teenager who spends most of your day, thinking about, the day you're going to get your driver's license and daydreaming about the dream car you want? Well, you're probably going to attract that to yourself, or at least attract yourself shopping for one. So you have to really look and see what you're putting your focus on. But the most important thing I wanted to tell you is that many of you are doing very well. I mean, as far as you're doing everything right. I mean, it's like you're reading. You're trying to meditate, even if it's difficult for you. But there is going to come a point, if you stick with it, where you build a momentum, where you will bring in that understanding. But wait, there's more. There is one thing that I haven't told you. Even though I've said that, there is one more important key factor to bringing in understanding. It's that you do need to work on raising your vibrations. I don't mean just for that moment. Sometimes when people are practicing certain abilities, they get into the habit of they'll sit down and they'll do some pranic type breathing because that raises their vibrations, and then they'll connect, and then they'll do a reading. Okay, and then when they're done and they disconnect and everything, well, their vibrations will go back down. When I speak of raising your vibrations, I am not speaking of that. I'm speaking of raising your vibrations permanently. Not only by whatever method you choose. Maybe you'll use mantras, maybe decrees, maybe prayers, but also by living right. Excuse me. By living right, what I mean is living a positive life, positive outlook, where the most of what you've got going on throughout your day is on a positive level. Also where you're not spending your day influenced by the things of the negative ego like worry, frustration, anger, but where you try to live your life in a way where you're living in the now, you're living in the present moment, and you're living in a way where you believe that at every moment everything is perfect and everything is exactly the way it should be. And I know you may say, yeah, it may not be. But at the same time, you have to know that it is. You know, I had a really rough week this week. And you're probably thinking, well, who do you turn to when you have a rough week? Oh, I have people that I turn to, people who are always there for me, you know, who always help me out when I'm having a rough week. And, well, it was like one of those weeks, one thing after the other. And I was really thankful that I'd gotten up to the point in my life where I found it easy to let go of things that would happen. Like, so, I burnt my hand really bad this week. You know, out of everything that happened, I burnt my hand. I did something really stupid. And I grabbed the handle of, the metal handle of a pot which I had in the oven, and I'm not even going to explain it because I'm not very domestic. I'm not a good cook. I do things that don't make any sense. And please don't laugh, but okay. Since I don't cook very well, I actually don't have like a lot of pots and pans. I mean, because for the longest time I was like, why? What's the point? I only need the basics. I only need like a set of pots, a couple of pans. Why do I need more than that? I don't know how to cook. So, like, I noticed that if I take my large Oneida skillet that is like almost like, I don't know what you call it, but it's almost like, you know, the pot part is like almost kind of like cast ironish. I don't know what it's Teflon. I don't know what it's made of. And then it has that metal handle. And you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, I realized that for my son, if he wants French fries, that if I cook them in the oven, in the skillet, they come out so good because he likes them soft. So I realized that, I don't know, it's just the way the skillet heats up, it gets the French fries exactly right because he doesn't like them crispy and hard. So he wants them cooked, but he still wants them on the soft side. Okay, so anyway, that was, the idea I got. Okay, it was maybe not too good of an idea in light of the fact that when I do that, I then have to, of course, I have to use a pot holder to get it out of the oven because the handle's like, of course, super, super hot. And so I use a pot handle, I get it out of the oven, I sit it on the stove, and then I get the French fries out. Well, I was having a really, really hard time getting the French fries out. And I wasn't focused for some reason, and actually that is very unlike me to not be like focused and in the moment. But for some odd reason, my mind drifted off. My son had been in the kitchen, and it's the weirdest thing happened. My son was in the kitchen, and he was asking me a question. I answered it, and he left the kitchen, and he went in his room, which is like right next to the kitchen. And he was in there, and his TV was on. And for some reason, I literally felt like when he walked out of the kitchen and went back in his room, that some part of me went with him. And because literally, I was like, all I remember at the time I burnt my hand was that I was listening to his television, as though I was in the room with him, like watching TV with him. I was 100% there, in that room with him. And I was not in the kitchen paying attention to what I was doing. And when I was having a hard time getting the French fries out of the pan, I thought to myself, this fleeting thought of, well, just, pick up the pot and dump French fries into the plate. I grabbed the handle quickly, and I didn't just kind of grab it, touch it and realize it was hot and pull my hand away. No, I grabbed it full on, actually moved it to the side. I mean, the whole way it happened was just strange when I, thought back about it. And because I had kind of turned as I was holding it, it was like a split second later, it registered in my brain hot. It was pick it up, I turned, my brain went hot. But the pot wasn't over at the stove, and I realized in that moment that I wanted to let it go, but I couldn't because I had slightly turned, so now the pot's not, the skillet's now over the stove, and if I drop it, I'm going to drop it on the tile floor, and quickly all these things went through my mind. I can't drop it on the tile floor. First of all, I might break the tile. Everything, the French fries are going to go flying. The pot is hot. What if the pot bounces off the tile floor and hits me, and it's hot, and it's going to burn me? And, quickly, at lightning speed, all these thoughts are going through my mind. And as quickly as I could, I turned back, and I didn't sit the pot down. I literally just turned back to the stove and dropped it. Just opened my hand and dropped it. And, I mean, it was going fast and in slow motion at the same time. The minute I opened my hand and dropped it, it was like nothing seemed conscious. Everything seemed, I don't know, there was some part of myself that wasn't in control of what I was doing, and some other part that was kicking in. As soon as I opened my hand and dropped it, I started screaming. Just my mouth open and screams came out. And I went running. I burned my hand so bad that I dropped it. I started screaming. I ran out of the kitchen, and I dropped down on the floor. Of course, for anyone who's burnt themselves, maybe a second to, between second and third degree burn, then you understand what I mean. It's initially, it's so painful that you're not thinking. The pain is so overwhelming that you're not even thinking of the actions that you're doing. You're just kind of doing them. And so I'm outside of the kitchen by where my son's door is, and he comes running out. He's 7. He comes running out, and I'm down on the floor, and I'm holding my hand. I'm screaming, I'm not saying anything, but I'm screaming, ow, 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 And so he doesn't know what's wrong because I'm not saying, anything. And he goes, what's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? And I managed to yell, I burned my hand. And I just heard this calm voice from him. He pats me on the shoulder, and he goes, come on, we have to put it in cold water. It'll stop the burning. It'll make it feel better. We've got to get it in cold water. And, at the time, all I could think was, now I'm focused on how, it's this calm voice that's not even him. That's not my hyper 7-year-old talking. I don't know who that was. But it was just this calm voice that was come on, we've got to put it in water. And, that kind of snapped me out of it, kind of made me think, oh yeah, that's right, I do know what to do. But, I'm just telling you this to say that, things happen. You won't always have a good day. But you have to be able to move on from it. You literally have to be able to kind of put it in the past almost as soon as it happens. You have to be able to let go of things. You literally, no matter how bad a day you have, you literally have to be able to be like, it's okay, because tomorrow will be a better day. So it's all right. Or if something happened and you don't like your behavior that day, maybe you're in a bad mood all day, you have to be able to tell yourself, it's okay, tomorrow I'll do better. And sometimes people get hung up and they start dwelling on these bad days they had, things they did, things they said, things people said to them, and they can't let them go. You won't get peace that way. Peace doesn't come from not being able to let things go. Peace actually comes from being able to let things go and to just let things be what they are. Maybe there's a reason why I burned my hand. Maybe that was meant to get my attention for something. There's a reason for everything. There's never any coincidences. But you have to be able to not dwell on bad things. You literally have to be able to almost be thankful for the bad things, because it's those things that you think of as bad, even though they're not, that you think of as bad, that help you learn. Those are the experiences that are your lessons. If you don't have them, you can't spiritually advance very well. How are you going to learn then? How are you going to learn and grow? So you almost have to be thankful for all those experiences you have. Yeah, not all of them are going to be fun. Some of them might have you crying. But you still have to find a way to be at peace with things that happen and thankful for the things that happen. Well, I have been talking now almost 45 minutes, a little short of 45 minutes. And so what I'm going to do is, I really think that what I talked about was the most important thing that right now that I wanted to share. Because I really think that there are some of you that are ready to bring in a higher level of understanding. You just have to know how to do that. And so it was really important to me that I kind of share that with you. Maybe knowing that you'll be able to get understanding of some things and help your own self in a way that maybe you haven't been able to previously help yourself. Now, if there's anything I said that you didn't understand, if I lost you at any point, or if you want to talk about, some of the experiences that I've had with how this understanding comes in, or what you're experiencing and how you're going about doing it, if you want to, talk to me about any of these things, you want to talk to me about, the methods, the things that I did, that I used to permanently raise my vibrations, I, of course, be free to speak with you about them. Of course, as time permits, I always answer everyone's email, and most of the comments on my blog I answer if I feel like, somebody is looking for an answer. But you've got to be a little bit patient with me, because I get a lot more emails than I used to. So, I try to respond quickly, but, if you email me in the morning and I don't get back to you by the evening, it doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. It just means that I try to answer everyone's email, and some of the questions that you ask me, they don't all have just simple, easy answers. And so, it sometimes takes time to write, these emails that, fully answer your questions and that don't shortchange you, that where I'm explaining things adequately to where you can understand them. So just bear with me. If you send me an email, I will get back to you. And of course, you can email me at Sherry, SHERRY, at Sherry, SHERRY, Andrea, ANDREA.com. That's Sherry at SherryAndrea.com. And of course, my website, where there's a lot of information. I mean, I've written probably on just about every topic. If you go to my website, which is SherryAndrea.com, and there the search thing that I have there, it works pretty well. And also, I have it broken up. You'll see the categories of everything. I mean, I tried to make it easy to find the information you're looking for. There is a lot of content. So that's why I said there's a search. So if you're looking for something, you can use the tag method, or you can just, search for some keywords if you're looking for something specific. Or, what a lot of people do is they'll email me and tell me what they're trying to be guided to, what they're looking for, and usually I know a website to recommend them to go to that has the type of information they're looking for. So always, feel free, even if you just want to ask me, hey, can you recommend a website where I can study this or I can read about that? Feel free to ask me, because I don't mind. Also, if you ever get a chance, even though, the emails that I have coming in and the comments on the blog, even though I do have people who do coaching sessions with me, which are just $25 per session, for the most part, the majority of the people that I help, which is probably 75 to 85% of the people, I don't actually charge anything. So you guys remember to just, if you want to donate something, to help keep it going, that can go towards, the cost of the website or anything. I would really appreciate it, even if it's only $1, $1 does make a difference. So that will at least help everything to keep going, like the cost of, upkeep on the website and, doing the radio show and everything. So, if you ever think about it and you want to kind of give back so that I can continue to help people without having to be like, make an appointment, make an appointment and pay. I don't want to be like that to anyone. So, if you have $1, just donate $1. You'll see the donate, there's a donate link on the menu. So even if that's all it is, hey, $1 makes a difference, because that means that, what you're doing is you're giving back to the universe something that you got. So if you got a benefit or you gain knowledge, like I always tell people, nothing is actually free. Energy is not free. We all pay for the things we get in some way, shape, or form. Just like me. I mean, the things that I've gotten, the spiritual advancements I've made, you don't think I've paid for them? Oh, I have. I pay for them. For example, every time I sit down and I send energy out to the universe to help the earth to heal herself, or when I send energy out to a certain country to try to help, maybe a country that's, in the midst of war. I pay when I send money to places where they're dealing with natural disasters, hurricanes, fires. I do that quite often. It's my way of paying for what the universe is giving me. So don't think anything is free. For everything you get, you do pay for it. There is an energy exchange in some way, shape, or form. And which is actually a method that I actually teach to people who are trying to practice the law of attraction and kick it up a notch. I teach them how to actually purposely and consciously send more energy out to the universe so that, they have more coming back to them. So anyway, if you think about it and you can make a donation, I greatly appreciate it. Anyway, I'm glad that I could have the chance to spend this time with you, share the knowledge that I've been given, and I look forward to the next time. And in the meantime, remember, don't hold on to things. Let them go. Okay, bye.